Video on demand page today. County Commission District 3 in focus. The challenger, Joe Pishgar, and the incumbent, Trudie Infantini. Lady and gentlemen, welcome. Glad you're here. And it was an interesting and vibrant hour on the radio. Let's see what we can do with this 10 minutes or so as we get started. Let's start with a topic that we talked about getting to on the radio, but we got a little busy. Let's go straight to CRAs.
Sure.
Trudie, you were not a CRA fan. I'm not a CRA fan, or an economic development zone, is the case with the county. I want your individual takes on these particular issues. Trudie, let's start with you.
The reason why I'm against the economic development zone is it's going to bind the entire Brevard County for the next 30 years to the tune of $150 million. It's going to take funds that would automatically go into the general fund and put them all in one district. And it's going to commit all of our taxpayers, my taxpayers in South Brevard County, need jobs ever so much as those in the north part of Brevard County. And yet we are diverting all of the taxpayer funds to stay right in that area rather than going to fund all of the essential county services. My opponent says he supports all the essential services. How are you going to fund them when you're diverting $150 million?
Joe, we'll let you answer.
My opponent has done a masterful job of making folks believe that CRAs are some sort of tax redistribution scheme. And again, we have heard the number $150 million. Where is $150 million derived? $150 million is what you would get if you took the North Brevard, if you took the new clean energy power plant, you destroyed it and rebuilt it for 30 times over the next 30 years. I don't think FPL is going to do that. CRAs are funded based on the tax increment. That is to say, what we receive right now, what the county receives right now in general revenue funds continues to stay the same. What the area that the CRA is built in improves to is what money is kept in the local community. That's why they're called community redevelopment agencies, community redevelopment areas. These are ways, economic tools, which work very well, by the way. There are hundreds of them throughout Florida, and they work exceptionally well. They're endorsed by the Chambers of Commerce, by the local EDCs.
Ever been to Satellite Beach?
Just one of 16.
No, that's one of many that are in trouble.
16 in Brevard County that has been poorly managed. But on the average, on the whole, I'd say 1 out of 16. I play those odds any day of the week.
Trudie, let me get
It
your
isn't
response
1
here.
out of 16. It's actually over half out of 16 that are not working, and I think there are more than 16 that we actually have. And so if all of the new revenue generated up in District 1 from the business section is not needed to help fund county services, then how come all of the additional revenue, tax increment revenue, that will be generated going forward out of all of the rest of Brevard County is needed? Why don't we just put a cap on everybody's taxes? If we don't need any more incremental revenue increases to fund all of county services, then why don't we put a cap on tax rates right now? Limit taxes, that's it. Everybody's tax bill is going to remain exactly the same if we don't need those revenues from those places. If those revenues are not going into the general fund, who is going to fund emergency medical service when that power plant, the $3.5 million that would go to Brevard County to fund services, how are they going to get emergency medical services if they're not paying for it?
When my opponent walked out of the county commission meeting, it was over this issue. It was over the contentiousness surrounding this particular issue. And the reason that we do not conduct a CRA across all of Brevard County is because when you're trying to do economic development, when you're trying to increase business in an area, you don't do it in a shotgun-style approach that just, let's do it all over the place. You do it in a very focused, you use a sniper rifle rather than a shotgun. Okay, you do this laser-like approach. You select a set of streets, a small set of areas, and you say, here is where the business community can be best served by letting them keep some of their tax revenue to further improve the economic environment of that area. And they work. We know they work because we've seen downtown Melbourne, we've seen Barton Boulevard in Rockledge, we've seen US 1 in Cocoa. We have seen these areas work. We know that they work.
Downtown Melbourne was revitalized because of Main Street Pub. Main Street Pub was the very first establishment that went in there to start selling alcohol. They had an uphill battle. Prior to that, downtown Melbourne was nothing. Now, perhaps the CRA may have assisted a small amount, but actually it was the Main Street Pub which fought that city council tooth and nail to ever go in. And ever since then, business after business has gone in and been successful because they broke the way. It wasn't the CRA that made that so. The CRA could have enhanced it and put in some cute little brick pavers. Other than that, that CRA did not create and bring back downtown Melbourne. Main Street Pub did.
Most of the economic interests in Brevard disagree with that statement. The chambers disagree with that statement. The Economic Development Commission disagrees with that statement.
Oh, I'm sure they do, yeah.
This is one of the reasons that at the chamber votes, when the chamber has had their straw polls at the Hobnob, I won a chambers of commerce, not Chamber of Commerce, Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce, Titusville, and Cocoa Beach had a Hobnob, and I won the straw poll 107-70. I only had one guy there.
That was because most of the people that attended that were from the north part of the county. I was at school that day, and I'll tell you what, most of the people that attended, yes, they were, and they were liberals. You can get that from Matt Reed himself.
Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Guys, let me get you back to the broader CRA issue, and I think it's where we have a division between you on philosophy. I see CRAs in economic development zones as taking responsibility off of the backs of elected officials to do the budgeting job and putting it on the back of appointed people in the CRA or EDZ situations where those appointed people can then go and borrow money against a future tax rate that the voters won't have an opportunity to vote on, those kind of things. Are you philosophically in favor of, in general, CRAs and EDZs or against? That would be, I think, the distinction between you. Joe, in favor of or against?
I am in favor of economic development. I am in favor of economic redevelopment, and I am in favor of the tools that we can use to get us there.
So that's a yes on economic development zones.
We've seen what it does in Brevard. We've seen a recession that could have been a lot worse in Brevard County.
That's a yes.
Okay, but if you look at... No, I'm against them. Okay. And I'll tell you what. Now they're looking to hire in the economic zone an individual for $80,000 to $135,000 to do exactly the same job that Linda Weatherman is already doing. How many people does it take to screw in a light bulb? I'll go back to that same darn question. How many people does it take to attract businesses and jobs to Brevard County? You cannot keep redistributing money and allocating it. And you talk about a shotgun approach. When you encompass the entire District 1, how is that not a shotgun approach? That's going after the whole district. So if it's good for District 1, it's good for all of Brevard County. You have unelected officials that are now able to issue bonds. They are going to bond out at least $80 million in new bond money to throw money at projects. You had another project in the state of Florida. Gosh darn it, slips my mind. They advanced them cash money. Advanced them cash, money up front to go into business. Oh, wait, a year and a half later, out of business. They are trying to pick the winners and losers, and that is not what a county's job is to do. We are to make an economic climate so that businesses come here because this is the place to be and survive. We are not to create jobs.
These decisions be up to the elected officials?
They should be up to elected officials.
So
you shouldn't have appointed individuals running these CRAs.
I believe that the responsibility of the county commissioner is to set the people in positions of responsibility to manage the things that they want done. And one of the things that we want done is economic development. And the question was, how many economic development people does it take to screw in a light bulb? Well, the answer to that is very much similar to the old question: how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? As many as we can get, as many as want to. It is of utmost imperative importance that we get economic development in Brevard.
And that's a value at $80,000, $120,000 a year to have another person in that position.
We still have a tremendously high unemployment rate here in Brevard County. Mm-hmm. It was kept lower than it should have been by the efforts of the EDC and CRAs, throwing around acronyms again. Mm-hmm. And we have to do whatever it takes to make sure that we are competitive economically in this environment, because we're up
paying
against
somebody that money is an investment that is worthwhile in this county.
Whatever the rate is, I would prefer it be as low as possible. But I do know that economic zones need solid management, and this is why they're appointed from folks in the business community from community leaders. This is why we have as much buy-in as we do with economic zones. And I'm curious, when the West Melbourne CRA started running and got up and running, where was the opposition then for West Melbourne CRA? Because I don't remember.
When I voted, that's where you found the opposition. I voted against the CRA and West Melbourne. You can see my votes are completely consistent. I don't vote for something in District 3, which is what you've alleged, that I vote for things in District 3, yet I won't vote for them in another district.
But the opposition really seemed to come to bear after District 1 had its CRA. There was no massive outreach to the community. There was no,
because it's not taking
$80
to $150 million.
Again, you're saying $150 million, and your colleagues at the county commission level have questioned your credentials as a CPA for using just that number itself. $150 million is what you would get if they built 30 power plants up there.
It starts out at $80 million. You don't even know how it gets to $80 million. You took Robbins $5 million.
Joe, you made an allegation here. Let her answer it. Joe, you have made an allegation.
And
let her
that's
answer.
the same thing that Chuck Nelson says.
Hang on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The $80 million that you start out with is the $5 million that you get from the first 5 years. Only 5 years is it based on new growth. From that year, that $5 million is going to be extrapolated times 26 years more. That'll get you close to the $80 million. That's assuming absolutely no other growth or appreciation takes place. So when you start out at $80 million, assuming not one other property gets built up, then you'd be capped at $80 million. Assuming growth and appreciation take place in that community, because right now our properties have dropped down, 40%? In the last few years, when that number goes back up, that extra 40% back where we were in 2005, 2006, you're going to be well over $150 million. When you start adding all of these new businesses that are coming in, SpaceX, you've got the Knights Armament, all these new construction projects that are going on, they're all taking place in North Brevard right now. All of those tax dollars are going to stay right there, and they're not going to help finance all the necessary infrastructure that's needed. So all of Brevard County, that's why they jacked up all the tax rates, knowing going forward they're not going to be able to increase them by the amount necessary to fund essential county services. You are binding and committing my district, District 3, to finance growth and development in District 1 completely disregarding all of our wants and needs down in District 3. And I don't know how you justify that. I've got a brand new grandchild. I want her to stay here.
Go ahead. We got to make it quick because we've got to wrap up. We're running out of time on the video.
Well, that was a very interesting harangue, and I don't know where those numbers are coming from. No one else out there agrees with what my opponent has just said. No statistical analysis, no in-depth study has been done that says the same thing that she just said.
Okay, let's get into this. We've got to close it down.
Do the math. If you multiply $5 million times 26, what do you get?
And the business community, the Republican business community, knows that what my opponent has just said is bunk. And there's just no getting around it. The numbers are made up.
They are not made up.
They don't sound made up to me. They really don't.
If you can't multiply 5 times 26, then I'm sorry. Perhaps this is a job for somebody with higher than a high school diploma. I'm just saying, I have the credentials necessary, and I think that you have an excellent skill set when it comes to managing computer games. I could never do that.
Okay,
but you have that skill set.
Yeah,
I don't take that from you.
My opponent has alleged that I'm somehow a professional video gamer, and again, Fantasyland again, and not to go back to the Neilman versus Ellis, but that was repeated.
I'm just kind of sitting back and enjoying all this, but I've got to stop it. We have got to go because we're running out of time on the video. How do people find more information about Joe Pishgar?
Well, they can find out actual information about me on my website at pishforcommish.com, and amongst those, you'll find that I'm not a professional video gamer, that I'm not involved with Occupy.
Okay, we're going to leave it there.
I would go to
Joe, I hate to do this to you, but I got to turn you off if you're not going to shut up.
Infantini.com, and that's where you'll find where my credentials are. And I need to post the website where Mr. Pishgar were in 2010, where it touted what he was, and he said he'd always aspired to do this.
We're going to leave it there. It has been interesting. It's been contentious, and we'll let you make the decision. That's what this is all about. We'll see you back here again. We've got one more video interview to do. It happens on Friday with the candidates for the property appraisers race. Glad you've been with us all along. Keyword video at WMMBAM.com.